Hey guys, it's coming in my review for the latest 2 episodes of American Horror Story Double Feature, Episode 4, Blood Buffet, and Episode 5, Gaslight. And as you guys know, I really have been enjoying at least this first half of the season very well. You know, Red Tide, I'm still not sure what Death Valley is really going to end up being overall, but I'm hoping for the best, and I was very excited for both of these episodes, especially the 4th one, because it seemed like it was going to dive a lot deeper into the origins of Muse and things like that, and so I was very excited to see how it would turn out. And I will say, just from these 2 episodes, I mean, if this doesn't turn out to be one of their best seasons yet, I would be very surprised, because just, I don't know what it is about this season, but everything that shouldn't be working is. And I think the biggest thing that they are benefiting from is, again, that more serious storytelling. There really is not a lot of camp going on in this season, and I think it really is benefiting them more than ever. And I mean, especially the 2nd episode we're going to talk about. You know, truly one of the creepiest episodes of American Horror Story I think we've ever seen. But we're going to get right into it, starting off with Episode 4. So, as I said when it came to this episode, I was very excited to see how it was really going to play out. The fact that we were getting all of these origins, you know, of how Muse was originated and things like that, and this episode mostly delivered. I will say my biggest issue with this episode right off the bat, I think it's way too short. The episode's only about like 43 minutes, and I think it needed to be at least like 50, because I think there were quite a few things we could have dived a bit deeper into. We do start off this episode with the chemist, though. She basically purchases this new home, and immediately, like, when she purchases it, she gets to work on Muse. She's starting to craft them, and then eventually she basically, you know, she basically confronts Dennis O'Hare's character, who we get a little bit more of in this episode in Holden, and basically explains to him how the pills are really going to work, but also what the pills are really all about. She apparently has spent the last, like, 9 years working with the military to, like, suppress creativity. She doesn't understand, you know, how creativity would really work. She wants to see, you know, it's kind of like a social experiment of sorts, and so she developed this drug that basically super changed the optical lobe, and it only worked on test subjects that were creative. She tried it with rats. Apparently it worked on them, so she thinks that it could very well work on human test subjects, and she kind of wanted him to be her first, which he does basically end up declining, but she does decide to give him like $50 for any potential suspects that he sends her way. So we now know how he got involved with all this, how he knows a lot more of what's going on, which I kind of felt like that was the case. Like in episode 3, when Burleson met up with him, I kind of got the sense that, like, he definitely is a little bit more knowledgeable of this than we think. And basically the rest of this episode is we get to see 2 different stories. In one of them, we see someone that was successfully taking the pill and was able to garner success within her life in Belle. We get to basically see how Sarah became Belle in that way. And then in the other timeline, and the other storyline we're going on here, we basically see a friend with Mickey's who ended up, a friend of Mickey's who ended up taking the pill and then started to deteriorate from there and eventually became a pale person. And I thought it was still a very effective ride. I particularly liked what we got to see with Belle here. I think Frances Conroy is such a phenomenal actress, and I feel like often she is wasted in these seasons. She dies too early, or she plays a very one-note character and doesn't really get to show, like, her true acting abilities. Not the case this season. This is some of the best work I think she has ever given in this show. I loved what she ended up doing here, where, you know, we see she starts off, she's selling books. It's not very successful. Nobody really seems to be taking her all that seriously. Even her husband is, like, not into what she's doing. He's kind of disgusted by the subject matter. And I thought that was really interesting, you know, seeing the relationship with her husband, the way he's kind of emotionally abusive towards her, and how the chemist is the only one that ends up purchasing the book. And eventually, you know, she does end up confronting her about, she does end up cornering her about Muse and basically makes her this offer where she's going to give it to her. She doesn't tell her about the side effects, and she's about to tell her about the side effects, but Belle doesn't really seem to care much about the side effects. She just kind of wants to be creative in that way. And I really like what we end up seeing, where she eventually does end up taking the pill. Eventually, the drug takes effect immediately, and this gets her to, like, finally start writing, and people are taking her work seriously. And I thought it did a really good job of taking a character like Belle, who we know is very deranged, who we know is someone that clearly has an addiction to these pills and also wants to get other people to try them. We really get to see, like, how she became that way and how she, wasn't always that way. And I love the scene where, like, her husband walks in and he's just, like, kind of denying the fact that, like, she wrote this. He doesn't believe that his wife would, conjure something up that's this good in terms of writing, and she literally just, like, bashes him over the head and starts eating him. And you can see that wasn't necessarily her intention, but I did definitely feel satisfied when that happened, because he was just a complete dick to her throughout the entire episode. And like I said, Frances Conroy just did such a great job there. When she eventually changes her look to Belle the way we know her today, now we know why she turned out that way. And then when she eventually ran into Austin, or back then he was known as Patio Furniture, he was a drag performer and not a very good one at all. Nobody really seemed to be interested in what he was doing. He wasn't wowing the crowds. He wasn't very good at doing lip syncing or anything like that. And I like the idea that she's the one who kind of gave him that inspiration to become a writer and to, write plays and things like that, realizing that he actually has a real talent for that. And she kind of got him to, like, hone his craft a bit. And once he took the pills, he actually ends up turning on the other drag performers that were making fun of him before. So I thought that was a really, honestly, kind of sweet story when it came to Austin and Belle. Yes, it's very fucked up, but there's something that's legitimately very sweet about it. You can see why these two care about each other so much, why they have that friendship. Belle really is the person that got Austin's career to fully take off, and why he has become such a successful writer in that way. And then with Belle, I mean, she really has achieved her dream, and I think it was a really good way to rationalize some of the actions that these characters have taken, but not try to do it too much to the point where now we're rooting for them. I thought they did a good job with that overall, so I really enjoy what we got with Belle. And then on the flip side, everything going on with Mickey's friend, who I was not expecting the chemist to know Mickey as closely as she did, but we can understand now why she wants Mickey dead, because the fact that Mickey clearly has come in contact with this substance before. Basically, we see that, at first she taught that he's with Karen. They're talking about, like, how depressed they are, and basically, he asks if she's, like, creative, and she talks about how she's not, and the singer takes the stage, and he's really not very good at all. And so Mickey sends him to meet the chemist, thinking that in doing that, basically, he's going to he's going to be the one to really help her get this business off the ground. So you can see these two have been working pretty closely together. And instead, things really take a turn for the worst when it comes to this singer. His hair falls out. He is feeling very cold. He has the exact opposite effect. And eventually, we do get to see him turn into a pale person. And I thought they did a really good job in showing just how quickly that takes effect, especially for the next episode. It made things a lot more clear with what really happens to pale people, how that all works out, and that he's the one that ends up killing the drag performer. I thought was a really good moment. So yeah, I enjoyed this episode quite a bit. Like I said, I do think it was a little bit on the shorter side, and I will say the chemist as a character, we still don't really know all that much about. We understand why she wanted to we understand what she wanted to do, but the biggest question is like, why? What caused her to do this? That's still something that we don't really know about, and I think we could have dived a bit deeper into her character. It felt like after that opening monologue, which Angelica Ross, I mean, did a great job throughout this whole episode, but it felt more like she was just kind of like the supporting character. She was there to spout exposition. This episode was much more focused on like Belle and Mickey than I really would have expected it to be. But I thought it worked really well. I thought that the story that they were trying to tell, they did a better job of getting us to understand, how the pill takes effect, why someone would want to take the pill. I thought all of that was really well done. I just think that if it was a little bit longer, it would have been that much more effective. But I do think they gave us a lot of valuable information that I think we very much did need the context of, so I really did appreciate that. I do think this was the weakest episode so far, but I still really did enjoy it quite a bit. So I'm going to give this episode overall a B. But now we got to talk about episode 5, which, holy shit. I mean, I gotta be honest, like, I have not seen an American Horror Story episode this good in quite a bit. Look, American Horror Story is a show that I very much do enjoy, but it's not very often when the show gets a big reaction out of me emotion-wise, to the point where, I'm feeling very sad when it comes to these characters. I felt sad before, but not to the point where, like, I'm almost on the verge of tears, or I'm legitimately really creeped out by what's going on, to the point where I'm, like, tensing up when characters enter the screen, and that was the case when it came to this episode. This episode was fucking amazing. I mean, I think the thing that works really well about this episode is that almost the entire season we have been focused on people that know a lot about the pills or have slowly gained knowledge of the pills. This episode we're mainly focusing on someone who doesn't really know any of what's going on and isn't really in control of the world around her anymore. And I think choosing to focus on Doris was a really smart idea, because prior to this episode, I feel that Doris, while a really well-written character, just didn't feel quite as well fleshed out as we need her to be. And I think in this episode, we really understood more about her. Doris is someone that, she wants to be the best mother possible. She wants to get the family back on track, but we also realize that she kind of blames herself for a lot of what's gone wrong. She feels like she's the reason why things are kind of tense in her marriage. She feels like she's the reason why Harry and Alma are a lot more distant from her these days. And I really thought they did a good job with showing us that, and the idea that now her delivering, this her new baby boy, who she eventually does give the name of Eli, that he basically is going to be the one to, kind of restore their family. He's going to be the one that gets their family back on track. I like that Harry kind of tells her, like, we're going to be great now. And then you realize that's very much not the case when he literally takes, like, the stained napkins, that are covered in blood, and, like, pours them into cups. I mean, that right there just shows just how, like, fucked up this family has really become, and I thought that really set the tone very well. But what I especially really liked about this episode is the way that the entire episode is almost in Doris's point of view. You are just as in a daze as she is. You are just as disoriented as she is throughout this episode, and I thought that was a really smart choice. The episode is very slow moving, but I think it really did pay off as a result, because, the rest of the episode, Doris is pretty much bedridden. You have characters that are trying to come to her. They're trying to help her out. Harry kind of, like, concocts this lie that the reason that they're staying in P-Town is because of the fact that she apparently is still getting over some of the labor pains from the carrying the baby and things like that. There's, like, post-birth complications, and she's, like, very high risk, so they need to stay there for, like, 3 weeks, and she totally buys into it. And that alone is a really scary thought. The fact that he's, like, completely convinced her, that all of this is true. Meanwhile, while this is all going on, we see Ursula is really making her feel like shit. And again, testament to Leslie Grossman this season. She is so good as this character. I mean, she's gotten to a point where every time Ursula walks in, you really can't stand her at all, but you also are so terrified of, like, what she's going to say, because you know that she's someone that's very blunt. She doesn't hold back, and she talks about how much it matters for her to for Harry to really become, someone special, this writer that means a lot to her. The fact that he's now, completely gotten all of these offers, and you can see that Doris is so overwhelmed. She doesn't understand how this is all happening so quickly, but it is happening, and she doesn't really believe that her husband has become, and it's sort of evocative of the way that Belle's husband acted towards her, except we know that Doris feels this way because she, again, just doesn't fully understand what's really going on here. And Ursula basically tells her, like, yeah, you need to sit back, you need to just ride his success, and that you don't really have any talent in you. And I like that the entire episode, everyone is trying to convince Doris, like, you don't have any talent, there's nothing good about you, to the point where even Alma, we see, really grills into her. And Ryan Kiera Armstrong, oh my god, this episode, I have not been this creeped out by a character in so long in American Horror Story, but every time Alma popped up in this episode, I was legitimately frightened as to what was going on. When she goes up to Eli and she nearly bites his leg off, I was like, holy shit, what is going on there? And then she tries to, like, make Doris think that she was crazy. I mean, truly, Alma is just the worst of the worst, and I really do think has always been this deranged, has always been this psychotic in that way, and we really do get to see that, I think, in this episode for sure. And you really don't know what Doris is going to do after this. She almost leaves the house, but Harry is the one that ends up guiding her back because these pale people nearly do attack her. And I thought that was a really good sort of foreshadowing of what's eventually going to happen to Doris. I thought they did a good job with that. But we see that, while she is still doing interior design, she's not really doing that great of a job. It's still a very strenuous process for her, and we even see, like, Holden comes up and basically talks about how, that he can help her out while she's impaired from everything, and that he can kind of take over. So again, you can really see that everyone is just really getting her. Doris wants to, and I think what we really kind of get to in this episode is that Doris wants to be admired by her family. She wants to be a lot more than just the stay-at-home mom. She wants to be more than just mediocre. She wants to be, someone that people can say, oh, Doris is great at what she does, but she doesn't generally believe that she is. I think it's because of the gaslighting, but also because of just her, being very self-conscious. I think we've seen that throughout the show. Doris is just a very self-conscious character. She puts a lot of pressure on herself, and we really do get to see that. And oh my god, when Alma finally talks to Doris and convinces her to take the pill, I didn't know if she was going to do it. There's that one moment where she almost does, and then Doris ends up caving and says that she wouldn't end up doing it. I like that Alma is the one that convinces her to do it, basically making it seem like, this is going to be the thing that gets their family back on track, and that she wants her to be this great mother, and she thinks she has the talent, and she kind of, walks her through the process and things like that. And what Alma is trying to do here. That she wants Doris out of the equation. She said before that she wants everyone that isn't talented to just kind of go away. And I knew once Alma was getting to Doris, like, she did it under the assumption that Doris didn't have any talent in her. And when she does end up taking that pill, oh my god, the episode gets even crazier from there. She ends up taking the pill. I like that they almost make you think that it's working for her, that she does have this talent with interior design, but immediately that it's not working out, just because of, like, how obsessively she's kind of, like, sketching through things and then, like, vomits across them. Again, just really well filmed there, really well written with the way they handled that. They really did a good job of almost fooling you at first that it was really having a positive effect on her. But very quickly, Alma, Harry, and Ursula end up leaving the house. They leave without the car keys, so she doesn't leave again. And then she basically just from there slowly starts to deteriorate. She loses her hair. She eventually is like losing the ability to speak. She's gaining weaker and weaker and colder throughout the minutes. It's such a heartbreaking sight to see. And that's the thing I love about this episode, is that while it is very scary, it's equally just as heartbreaking, because we really are watching someone that had so little control over her life lose even less control. And it's very sad to see, but I think Lily Rabe just does such a phenomenal job throughout this entire episode of really getting us into the head of Doris, someone who again just still can barely comprehend what's going on, but just kind of has to accept her situation and that there isn't really much that she can do. She was the one person that wanted to generally fix their family, that wanted to turn things around, and everyone else at that point was just too far gone. And the moment where she almost ends up killing her baby, she nearly kills him, I thought was just a crazy moment, the way that turned out. And then Harry chains her up, and he has this really crazy monologue where basically he talks to her, and I think he finally admits to her, how he's truly felt all this time, that he has in fact outgrown her. He doesn't want Doris in his life anymore. He feels that he's kind of like moved past her in that way. And again, this is something that I think we definitely should have seen coming. We know that he was always kind of like acting out towards her, but in this really does confirm, just how broken that marriage really is. And when he just basically like sets her free into the wild, I mean, it is such a disturbing fate for this character, and it's so sad to see what ended up happening. And I think what works so well about this scene with Harry, with her just kind of like letting him into the wild, is it like fully confirms like where we're supposed to stand with him as a character. I feel like they've done a good job of making Harry pretty morally ambiguous, but this episode really just shows just how deceitful of a person that he really is. He never really cared about Doris. He cared about his own personal gain. That's always what mattered the most to him. He tried to sort of, he tried to, I think, say that it was for the family to kind of like make himself feel better, make himself feel like a better person. But in reality, Harry is a terrible person. He's incredibly narcissistic. He is someone that honestly, at times is as bad as his daughter. I mean, I don't think he's quite on the level of her in terms of like how low he's willing to stoop. But the fact that he just kind of like send her to the wolves when he, in the beginning of the episode, was talking about how much he wanted to bring their family back together. I think we really just see that was something that he told himself to make himself feel better, and of course that was very much not the case. And I think they've done a really great job with that. Finn Wittrock especially has done a really good job with making him seem like a hero, but in this episode we see he really is anything but that, and I do think he's very much going to have to pay the price in the next episode for sure. And then when we do get that realization that Alma and Ursula did this knowing full well what this would do to Doris, I mean, these characters, there's no limits for them. They will stoop to any level in order to remain the best, in order to continue to be in order to be the best. And we definitely do see that here in the ending, where basically Ursula and Alma are going to pay this visit to the chemist, and they eventually do see pale Doris eating a rodent. And I think it really comes full circle there, because we know that Doris was so horrified by the sight of her daughter doing it, and now the fact that she's the one doing it. I mean, it was just such a perfect way to wrap things up. They did such a great job with everything going on with Doris in this episode. Again, I know that it might have seemed a bit overwhelming for some because there was a lot going on. And no, it wasn't necessarily unpredictable. I think we all kind of expected it to go in this direction, but I love the fact that they went in this direction. I truly didn't know if they were going to. I felt like Doris was going to be kind of just like a bland throwaway character, but I liked that this episode we really got to see a lot more, dive a lot deeper into her psyche, what's going on with her. It's kind of see things through her point of view, where things are very hazy fuzzy, things are very unclear. The idea of like the camera shaking and things like that, things moving in slow motion, even what they do with the sound, where there are times in this episode where people are talking and it's very muffled. I mean, it was just such an amazing choice, and I loved what they ended up doing. Everything technical wise in this episode was so good with Doris, and I thought they did such a great job with everything going on with her here. But then, I mean, oh my god, we gotta talk about Karen's stuff as well. You guys know how much I have adored this character. I think Sarah Paulson has absolutely been killing it throughout this entire season, and what she does here, I think, might just be some of her best work yet, because Karen in this episode is really under a lot of stress, because Mickey is really gaining success in a very rapid manner. You know, he's got this speed racer deal to the point where now they want to do a whole franchise around him, so it seems like he's actually gaining a lot of success here, and he kind of offers her this job, you know, that he wants to move in with her. It feels like these two have a genuine love for each other, and I think that's what really works so well about these two characters, that you do get the sense that Mickey does generally care for Karen. You know, we know that he doesn't want to kill. He didn't want to have to kill people. He didn't want to have to take the pill. But we also know that he very well knew of its side effects. Like, he knew what he was getting himself into, and at this point, you know, it seems like things are okay. But again, Karen remains the most, I think, morally, you know, sane character out of everyone. She continues to be the voice of reason, where she realizes very early on that, yeah, Mickey is fully succumbed to the effects of these drugs. He is way more aggressive with her. He's really demanding about her, you know, getting out and taking the pill, and to the point where Belle basically makes this deal with her where it's either like, you have to, you know, give me the baby and take the pills, or I'm gonna have all of these pale people kill you. And that scene was so well done. And Frances Conroy, once again, I mean, seeing her from that last episode where she was like this helpless woman who was abused by her husband, and now seeing her and seeing her now where basically, you know, she is this very like ruthless and like conniving character where she always kind of gets what she wants and she will never let anyone get in her way. I mean, just such an amazing transformation for her there. But I really didn't know what was going to happen to Karen. I was just really hoping that she wasn't going to die, and she ultimately does decide that she needs to go ahead and do this task. But it seems like she wants to do it more because she cares about Mickey. It isn't really because she cares about her life. She just cares about Mickey. But she knows that the one level she will never stoop to is taking that pill. She knows what it can do to her. She knows the effect that it can have on her, and she just does not want to get to that level. And, you know, basically, we see that, you know, Mickey really kind of talks to her about her painting and how great she can be, and she's pissed at Mickey. Like, she's very annoyed that Belle ended up tracking her down, because this was the last thing that she really wanted, especially since, as we know, like, Belle wants all of them dead. So, like, you know, she wants Mickey out of there, and the fact that he, like, made this proposition with her, you know, you can see that Karen's very annoyed about that. But she does feel that taking care of this baby is going to help get her life in order, and Mickey's going to help her, like, you know, before he loses this. Like, this is kind of like her last shot to finally get close to Mickey. And again, it really just shows the pureness in Karen. She's doing this for entirely selfless reasons. She's not doing this to help herself. She's doing this to help Mickey. This will be like his last, like, good thing that he does before he starts to get a lot deeper into Muse and becomes a lot more sadistic, becomes a lot more deranged in that way. You know, he's already starting to get there, but he's not fully gotten there yet. And so when we do get to that scene where at first she doesn't want to kill Doris, but then she's terrified by the pale people, we understand even more why Karen's afraid. It's not because she knows, you know, what this can do to people where it makes them, you know, lose their morals. It's because she herself is worried that she's untalented. She doesn't think she has it in her. She doesn't think that she is going to become successful. And you really do feel for Karen in this moment. I think this is why, for me, Karen is the best character of this entire season, because you really understand the idea that Karen generally believes that she isn't good enough for this. She doesn't think, she thinks the life that she has is the life that she's supposed to have, eating through garbage, looking homeless, everyone, kind of ostracizing her, kind of villainizing her in that way. She thinks that is her purpose in life. And when she has that moment where basically she realizes that her only path is to take that pill in order to get past all of the pale people, because they're not going to eat her if she turns out to be one of them. I thought it was just such a great moment what ended up happening, but I love that she's also like so upset that she took it. It made so much sense for her character that she doesn't lose her humanity here. And Mickey tries to tell her, like, look, you're just hungry, that's the only thing that's going on, and he wants to take her to LA, and that she's gonna be like a set designer for him of sorts, and basically he wants her to feed immediately. And I really love the last scene we get with Mickey and Karen, where basically he talks about how he does want to help her, and he wants her to get back on the right path, and that she's gonna help them both get better. It was a generally really sweet scene. And so while she does kill Mickey here, which I was kind of shocked that she did, it ends in a way that feels kind of bittersweet. It's not as horrifying as you would think, and that's something I really did appreciate, because at the end of the day, while Doris is someone that didn't ever get to gain control of her life, Karen remained in control even throughout her last moments. So when she does kill Mickey and then slits her wrists and goes into the shore, again, this is entirely the path that she wants herself to take. It's a devastating one for sure, but it's what Karen wanted to do. She knew that her morals were too important, and she was not going to compromise that for the pill, even if she was successful. She was too worried about the effect that it would have on her. She doesn't want to become that way. She doesn't want to become like the others, and she's also worried she's going to become a pale person, and it all just felt so genuine in that way. And Sarah Paulson just did such a great job at really getting you to understand this character's move when she does in fact go into the waves. I feel like that alone is why this season is called Red Tide, just for that moment. I think that's going to be a moment we're never going to forget in American Horror Story. It's just that scene right there. I thought they did such a great job, and again, just really getting us to understand why Karen felt the way that she did. She really was the one character left that was pure throughout the entire thing. She did everything she can to try to get, not just to help herself, but also to keep her friendship with Mickey. It mattered a lot to her. This was a very genuine friendship, and the fact that she was slowly losing him, she knew that she wasn't going to let him become this very deranged and evil bloodsucker. She knew that's not who he was, and again, it's so effective with the way all of that played out because of the great work they've done with these two characters. For me, it was easily the most effective moment of the entire episode. I honestly almost shed a tear with the way they wrapped that up, and I really could not have asked for a better way to conclude Karen's arc. I do think she's dead here. I do. I know a lot of people have said that maybe she's not, but I do think that Karen probably is dead. I think she wanted to go out that way. I think she wanted to go out knowing that she will die, with her morals intact. She didn't want to die in a way where, she was a version of herself that she didn't like, and I think that's what's so effective about this final scene. But like I said, guys, this episode was truly incredible. It was frightening, but it also had a tinge of sadness throughout it that really ended up being one of the most impactful episodes, I think, in American Horror Story history. I have not felt these kind of emotions with this show in a long time, but it really does show that when they really do commit to telling a much more serious and grounded story, it can really work. It can really be something special. And I think this is an episode that they're probably not going to be able to top for a while, but it's one that I'm very happy did in fact exist. It told two stories of two women, one that was in control of her life, one that wasn't, and I thought that contrast worked so well together. Lily Rabe, Ryan Kiera Armstrong, and Sarah Paulson absolutely dominated this entire episode and really just showed how great the acting ensemble really is throughout this entire season. This was absolutely one of the best episodes I think I've seen of this entire show, and I'm definitely going to give it an A. But overall, guys, in my review of the last 2 episodes of American Horror Story Double Feature, I can't believe we're already coming to the end here of Red Tide. I understand it's only been 6 episodes, but I don't really feel like this is rushed at all. I feel like we've gotten to a point where it's like, I'm okay with this wrapping up here. I think that they're actually benefiting from the more truncated storytelling, because I think it's actually helping the show overall, because like I said, I think it would have dragged out if they would have kept this going any longer. There still are quite a few things we need to wrap up. We need to see, you know, the confrontation of Belle and Austin and the chemist. They're gonna meet up with, you know, the Gardner family, because obviously the chemist wants all of them dead. So I don't really know how that's all gonna turn out. Is Alma gonna get her way? Is Ursula gonna get her way? You know, I'm not really sure what's gonna happen there, but I'm very excited to see how it all does wrap up in the finale, of course. I think that is really gonna be, I hope, a very satisfying hour. I don't think they're gonna top this episode, like I said. I think this episode is just, it's one of the most emotional episodes of American Horror Story they've done in a long time, and I just don't think that it's going to be topped for a while. But I'm not asking for that. I'm just asking for a solid conclusion. Again, I don't know if it's going to tie into Death Valley at all. I'm really not sure how that's all going to turn out, but we'll really just have to see what ends up happening there. But other than that, guys, my review of this episode of these 2 episodes of American Horror Story Double Feature. The most guys saw these episodes overall. Left your thoughts on it. We'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.